Awesome. Hi, my name is Walls. I wrote and directed the script Scare Factor.
My name's Sophie. I also wrote and directed.
And I am Raj, and I did the videography and editing.
Scare Factor.
So, I mean, credit really for the idea of Scare Factor goes to Sophie here. We were sitting in the Livingston?
Student Center.
Yeah, the Livingston Student Center, and just kind of sat down at the table and just started brainstorming a bunch of stuff. And we ended up going with your idea, which was the office, the style of the office. Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that style?
Okay. Wallace had like one script idea that we kind of went through, and then we were like, let's do something fun that's just gonna kind of be fun to shoot and kind of easy, especially with the run and gun style, which is kind of the style of The Office. So we took inspiration from The Office for how we wanted to do our video. So for casting, after we wrote the script, about a week later, we had like just a casting call kind of with a couple people from CAP, and they read it. We did they alternated roles, and we just kind of decided who fit the part the best.
Everyone got a chance to read each character and just kind of tailored it to who fit the role the best that we had come up with it in our head. And Haley was a suggestion that she wasn't actually there for the casting, but like based on everyone who knew her, we figured she'd be the best for the Scott role. But then the people that were actually there, we filled in with the other two roles.
Yeah.
So that worked out nicely.
We got to the park and we tried to get through security, but apparently you're not allowed to bring mics in. So that was a big challenge for the filming process. That's when we decided to cut some dialogue so that it would be mostly action, because you really could not hear the actors at all over all the screaming and the rides and everything.
We changed some dialogue stuff on the spot, I think.
Yeah,
actually.
when we got there, we took out a lot of dialogue because we realized that the audio was gonna be poor.
Yeah, loud roller coasters and screaming children aren't super conducive to great audio for a film, but work with what you got. That's the moral of that story.
It's definitely a loud environment to work in, and it would have been nice to have something to focus the audio, but unfortunately, we weren't able to get it in. More on that in Kevin's cut, I guess.
Gotta fix it in post.
Yeah.
But it kind of works out nicely for our script anyway, because we made it pretty action heavy. So even though there's a whole lot of dialogue, I think all the movements, the way that we directed them and wrote them, still worked out really nicely. So
Yeah, you can tell what's happening.
yeah, exactly. You can tell what's happening. You can get the gist of the story regardless. Yeah, so I mean, this wasn't so much of an issue just as a script choice. Was we wanted to get the difference or show a passage of time really for the script. So we had to wait until it was about to be sunset basically, so that we got some footage of what was going on in the park during the daytime, and then kind of get some sunset lighting actually for the very first real scare in the script. And then we waited until it actually got dark, so that all the Fright Fest actors came out and started doing their thing, but then also played into our script where the Scott character tries to blend in and start scaring people themselves. So we had to kind of figure out that window of time for when we need to actually start shooting and what needed to be shot first or later compared to what was actually happening.
Yeah, and to add on to that, as soon as we started the filming process, it was a race against the clock to make sure we got all the shots we needed for the sunlight part while the sun was still out. And we couldn't really turn back and reshoot things because once that sun starts setting, you can't get the same lighting effect. So it was really just a chronological thing, shoot everything chronologically instead of jumping around. And that's, I guess in ways that made it easier, but also we couldn't really spend too much time going back and reshooting things. We had to just kind of keep what we had and just work with it. One of the most annoying things about the shoot that I didn't anticipate is just getting the area, finding the right space to get the shot. And it's a huge park, it may sound easy, but with so many people walking around, especially if you're trying to get a long shot, like one of the shots that we did in the film, I guess we can cut to that, show that. It became difficult because people would come into frame and stand there and look at their phones and just be in the middle of the frame.
Oh my God.
And multiple occasions we had to reframe shots to make it work. and in those multiplications, people would come into the shot again. So that was one struggle.
There was one way we circumvented it, and I want to open this up for one of you guys to talk about it.
We circumvented it?
Like to get around that problem, like having people with cameras standing around. You want to talk about that? Because you kind of led that.
That was actually pretty cool. So like we had like, more than just the three of us helping out. We had other people. And at one point when it got too much for just people walking in front of the camera, we had people kind of form like a semicircle to block people from coming in. They would even get out their phone to pretend like they were filming something, since I guess it's just an unspoken rule that people will never get in front of a phone camera if something's happening. So that worked out pretty funnily, actually. Also, just like with that long shot thing before, I thought it was really funny. We I couldn't hear you guys at all while that was happening.
Right.
So like it's a cue to action for that scene. We had to just start waving our hands at each other in the middle of the
and it was
part.
getting dark.
It
And
was
there
getting dark.
There were so many people in that one location, and we were trying to get like a super zoom.
This, and I'm just gonna like zoom in. Maybe not that far. Maybe like right here, so we can see the arrow.
So the camera, me and Raj were really far away from Haley and Wallace, and we were literally just waving our hands. It was tough to communicate.
Yeah. But it's amazing how people, like, just having your phone out, pretending like you're filming, deters people from walking into your space.
Yeah, but a real camera, they have no problem
They don't,
stepping in front of
care about
Somehow.
a real camera. No, not at all.
I don't know how that works, but yeah.
The cool thing about this was both me and Sophie's first time directing something, so that was pretty cool. With directing in Six Flags, I think something that was really important was, if like you can tell that by script, was we really wanted to use the location. It seemed like it'd be a waste if we went to Six Flags and didn't really base a story off of what was actually happening in the park, and also just using the locations. So even while we were there and like getting stuff together, we would do like a little bit of location scouting to figure out, okay, this is a really nice background for this shot. Oh, we can use this shot for this. With that long shot thing before, there was a big arrow pointing towards the actor that we really wanted to use. So just purposely using that environment and having the actors interact with it was really important for this script.
And Six Flags is like so like diverse, kind of like if we wanted, there was one character who's supposed to be kind of like depressed and lame. He's not enjoying himself, so we could set him in front of like a really dark kind of depressing background. And then there was one girl who's like excited about the whole thing, and you put her in front of the bright lights, and it kind of matches. Yeah.
But what was the other question again?
Oh, our original idea for the short film was to have a long montage of like failed scaring attempts, but
yeah,
we only got like 2 of those.
Our actors weren't super comfortable with the idea of just scaring random pedestrians or scaring the actual actors for Fright Fest, because those guys are actually scary. So we just, started using our own crew as actors. Like I appear in it for a second as someone that's supposed to get scared but doesn't. 2 of the guys that were working on the set with us,
Zach and Eli.
I keep forgetting their name. Zach and Eli got to make a star appearance in that Odyssey. That turned like the longest scare in the script. We ended up just kind of having to work around that. It's important to like take into account the actor's comfort level when doing these things, because we want to make something good, but we also don't want to make people uncomfortable while it's happening, or else it's just not fun anymore. So you just kind of have to work around that. I think it still turned out good. Like it still is basically what we were going for, even though we had to cut out the long montage. We still got a sort of montage going on with all the footage from the actual Fright Fest mixed in with Haley going about pretending to scare us, and then like just actually interacting with Fright Fest itself.
And in the editing process, that's where the B-roll came in handy. It was important for us to gather a lot of B-roll footage of the park itself. And that not only just helps set the scene more that we're actually in Six Flags and Fright Fest and using the scenery around us, but that also helped us kind of thicken up that section. What's the better way of saying that?
Pad it out.
Pad it out.
It helped us like pad that section so that we could kind of sell the idea that she was going around scaring people, even though we had limited footage of her doing that. So it was a lot of B-roll shots that just were mixed in, but just kept the movie going.
Kept the energy up.
Kept the energy up, exactly.
So something that we would do differently for if we were to ever do this again, and the schools are generous enough to do this again, is sneak in a microphone. Just because besides having good audio, I think there is a version of that script where if we were able to keep in the dialogue, we could add in like a lot more dialogue jokes besides just visual jokes. So, and that'll actually land because you're not distracted by the million of different other noises that come with amusement parks. So that, for me.
Yeah, definitely. The audio is probably our biggest downfall because it's just really hard to get across the comedy or the whole situation. Just a lot harder to convey when the actors are shouting and there's 100 people walking around and there's announcers speaking into their microphones about prizes and stuff. It's not ideal.
That made the final cut.
Yeah.
The prize speech from the announcer. Actually, one thing that I would do differently is maybe since it was such a limited time, maybe stick to one, either the day or the night, so that we can have more leniency in going back and getting shots if in case we needed some more stuff. And maybe even just reviewing the footage before we left the park, or just checking things off the list just so we don't forget anything. Because as soon as you forget something, you have to really do some video surgery in the post to fix it up. And yeah, that was really fun to deep through stuff and kind of make it work. But yeah, if we can avoid that, that would be awesome next time. Make my life easier.
Saying a full name with elegance or just first names casual?
First name casual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wallace.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I kind of
I'm tired, but I'm oh my god, I could possibly kill a man today.
Think about? What's a better word for think about? Anticipate. We'll try that again. One of the most annoying things about the shoot that I didn't anticipate is
I'm starving and I'm just oh shit.
Are we going to IHOP?
Yeah, let's do it.